My husband, Marquis Wei Yuan, is a good husband praised by everyone. Married for 20 years, he has never taken a concubine, nor kept a mistress outside, and has rarely even set foot in brothels. Even when our only legitimate son passed away, he only adopted the son of an old friend who was living in our residence, and did not add other women to the rear courtyard. But no one knows that his true love is not me. Before I died, I had cold food and thin clothes. After I died, my mouth was stuffed with chaff. He, Zhao Qingshu, wanted me to be unable to voice my grievances, and unable to defend myself when I reached King Yama's hall. But little did he know that I was reborn to a time when my son was still alive. Today is the Dakshui solar term. The cold air outside is like a knife, and the room also has a frosty feel. Sukyu was forced to kneel before me, her pale, pretty face filled with indignation. I looked at the medicinal powder found in her room. The evidence of the poisoning has been found. What else do you have to say? She opened her mouth, wanting to argue. Me face darkened, drag her down and beat her. Amidst the dull thuds of the cane, even though her mouth was stuffed with a torn cloth, piercing moans still escaped from time to time. After 30 strikes of the cane, Sukyu, with her skin split and flesh gaping, was thrown before me like a torn rag. I signaled for Shuizu to remove the cloth from her mouth, and as I raised my eyes, I met the hatred in Sukyu's eyes. Speak. Who on earth put you up to this? Sukyu stiffened her neck and gritted her teeth. This servant is innocent. This servant did not poison, madam. That medicinal powder is not poison. It is what this servant uses to regulate my health. I know. Sukyu is stubbornly refusing to confess. She is just waiting for the Marquis, waiting for my husband Zhao Qingshu to come protect her. Too bad. She won't be able to wait for him. Under Sukyu's terrified gaze, that packet of medicinal powder was dissolved in wine and forced down her throat. Since it is a medicinal powder for conditioning the body, how can it be wasted? After all, in my past life, that packet of powder was mixed into my meals little by little, all of it entering my stomach, making me weaker day by day, until in the end I was bedridden. Now, she is getting off easy, dragging away the collapsed Sukyu. I sat down calmly by the cozy charcoal fire. Before long, the sound of hurried footsteps came from outside the door. That Zhao Qingshu, who put on an act and deceived me for 20 years, he finally arrived. Zhao Qingshu was broad-shouldered and slim-waisted, extraordinarily heroic and handsome. Even at nearly 40, he only had a bit more of the steady composure that comes with age compared to when he was young. Right now, however, he was anxiously looking around the courtyard. Not seeing the person he wanted to save, he pondered for a moment, then came to find me. My lady, I heard from the servants that Sukyu poisoned you. Is there some mistake? I sipped my tea unhurriedly. Does the Marquis also think it is impossible? He quickly nodded. I then smiled. Sukyu has been by my side since she was 14. Though called a maid, she was practically like a young lady. But even though I treated her so well, I still raised a heartless and ungrateful wretch. Zhao Qingshu's brow twitched. Where is she? Beaten and sent to the authorities. Zhao Qingshu suddenly stood up. Madam, how can we let the authorities know about this kind of backyard dirty laundry? Wouldn't it harm the reputation of the Marquise's mansion? He got anxious, but was he really afraid of damaging the Marquise's mansion's reputation? Or was he afraid the authorities would actually dig something up? Only he himself knew. I spoke unhurriedly from behind him. This matter concerns my life. I have already informed my eldest brother. He is the Minister of the Court of Judicial Review and will definitely investigate this thoroughly. He stopped in his tracks. Marquis, rest assured, my eldest brother will definitely be tight-lipped. Zhao Qingshu turned around, came back to sit down, and sighed. Madam, your action was reckless after all. He still wanted to persuade me to get Sukyu back from the authorities to be dealt with here. I already had Shuizu prepare lunch. Zhao Qingshu's gaze was instantly captivated. Madam, Why aren't you restricting my diet today? Is all this meat and wine on the table prepared for me? My gaze sharpened slightly. Before, for the sake of the Marquise's health, the food was plain and light. From now on, that won't be necessary. From now on, the Marquise can eat to his heart's content. After eating and drinking his fill, Zhao Qingshu left in a hurry. He still hadn't given up, wanting to go to the authorities to pull some strings in an attempt to get Su Qiu out. After all, she is the cousin of the woman he loves. For the dignified young Miss Cousin of the Hanyu Mountain Villa to endure humiliation and serve as a maidservant in my home. It wasn't just for simply gathering information. What she wanted was my life. I handed 2 jade gourds, one green and one white, to Shui Su. The green one, just like today, put it in the Marquise's daily food and drink. The white one, mix it into the incense burned at night at the Jade Leaf Pavilion. Hearing the name Jade Leaf Pavilion, a slight ripple appeared in Shui Su's calm eyes, which finally sank low. Never mind Shui Su's surprise. Even I only found out right before I died. That Shui Jinji, who was lodging at the Marquise's mansion and had always kept to herself, was the one Zhao Qingshu truly cherished in his heart. It is just that they fell in love too late. By the time they met, Zhao Qingshu and I had already had our son, Zhao Yi. To avoid suspicion, Shui Jinji pretended to be Yao Qian's mistress, but in reality, she lived a life of mutual affection with Zhao Qingshu. Yao Qian was Zhao Qingshu's subordinate and also Shui Jinji's senior from the same sect, so he was naturally willing to provide a cover for them. Later, Yao Qian was convicted. The rescued Shui Jinji and her son then came to lodge at the Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion, under the guise of being old acquaintances. Right under my nose, the two of them carried on their secret, passionate affair. But later on, her ambition grew. She resented me for holding the title of the Marquise's wife and coveted my son's position as the heir. So she and Zhao Qingshu hatched a vicious plot. They murdered my son, Zhao Yi, and then they murdered me. I made a trip back to the Song mansion, chatted with the old master in his study for half the day, and brought back a few unfamiliar servants with me. I had just sat down when Jing Quan came to report. "My lady, the Marquise has gone to the government office." "Did he see Su Qiu?" "I saw her." Jing Quan lowered her eyes. "Lady Shui of Jade Leaf Pavilion has been crying all afternoon. She knows how to feel heartache too. In my past life, when she acted against me, she didn't show the slightest bit of mercy. After she and Zhao Qingshu killed Yair, she had Su Qiu poison me to make outsiders think that I was overwhelmed with grief after losing my son and plagued by illness. Little by little, she clipped my wings and stripped me of my authority to manage the household. She left me with no one to use and no one to rely on. Forced to curl up without any dignity in a filthy, crude woodshed, where even the filth was left uncleaned. The grand madam of the Marquise's manor was starving and in rags, living a life worse than a beggar on the street. Who would believe it? The most hateful one was, of course, him, Zhao Qingshu. When he asked for my hand in marriage, he promised the world that I would be his only wife in this life, and there would be no other women. But in less than 2 years, he met his true love. He was unwilling to give up his good reputation for being steadfast and faithful. Nor was he willing to divorce me and lose the support of my father and brother. He could only, after finding a new way out, harden his heart and harm us, mother and son. What a fine calculation. Indeed, starting to cry only now. It is still far too early. Send a message to Yao Yulin. Just say that Zhao Qingshu is abusing his mother, that his mother is suffering greatly and urgently needs him to save her. Zhao Qingshu and Shui Jinji, who hooked up and had an affair in the name of true love, they were unwilling to let him face the criticism. The status of being a bastard was enough to ruin his future. The two of them only needed to clear the obstacles for him in private, and he would be able to inherit the Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion openly and honorably. That is how it was in the past life. After Yao Yulin was adopted, the ancestral hall was opened. He was entered into the family registry. His surname was changed to Zhao, and he openly called Zhao Qingshu father. So by the time Yao Yulin was 15, he still thought he was really Yao Qian's biological son. This time, I'd like to see just how Shui Jinji will explain herself when the number she is so painstakingly hidden is discovered by her own son. And as for Yao Yulin, who was raised by Zhao Qingshu to be upright and sensible, how will he handle himself when faced with these filthy matters? On this day, the small kitchen of Yuye Pavilion boiled water all night. Zhao Qingshu's face was pale and his legs were weak. He could barely step onto the carriage for the morning court session after he left. I went to my dowry manor. Jingquan, take 20 elite men and go support the Shizi along the way. I specially instructed him. Ride fast and travel light, conceal your tracks, and be careful not to alarm anyone. Remember, you must deliver this letter into Ye's own hands at the fastest possible speed. Jingquan is Yair's personal attendant. He is deeply attached to him and has always been loyal. Hearing my solemn tone, he too became serious. This subordinate will not fail the trust you have placed in me, madam. Jingquan departed quietly with his men and horses. I breathed a sigh of relief, yet my heart began to ache sharply. In my past life, 23 days later, Ye died late at night on the Laba festival. On that day, he returned from investigating a case with the Crown Prince's party, and they camped in the wild. Summonon blew up the thin ice on the river. The water that had been stagnant all winter came surging through, and no one survived. Su Chu once smugly bragged to me that the ones who blew up the river were people from their Cold Jade Manor. The Cold Jade Manor used the Crown Prince's blood and my Ye's bones to forge a ladder to the heavens, completely defecting to the 7th prince who had been biding his time. This blood debt was also Zhao Qingshu's pledge of allegiance, but clearly, in the very beginning, it was he who first sent Yar to the Eastern Palace to be the Crown Prince's study companion. It was also him who, when the Crown Prince went to Jiangnan to investigate a corruption case, strongly recommended that Yar go with him. You see, the Zhao Qingshu praised by the world is clearly a black-hearted person. A heart full of hatred filled my chest, and my eyes became bloodshot. Go tell the authorities. Don't worry about whether she lives or dies. Use severe torture. Zhao Qingshu once again came rushing to my courtyard. My lady, was it you who told the authorities to severely torture Su Chu? I nodded nonchalantly. He slammed the table. My lady, how can you be so vicious? Su Chu is still a child, even if she did something wrong for a moment. You could have just kicked her out of the manor, perhaps because I had already witnessed his cruelty. These words of his did not make me lose my composure. Instead, I jabbed back at him. Zhao Qingshu, you also commanded troops in your early years. If a subordinate tried to kill you, would you let them off lightly? Zhao Qingshu was taken aback, not expecting that I, who had always been so agreeable, would have this kind of attitude. I then slammed down my teacup, my words full of malice. Besides, Marquis, you are too late. After a bowl of medicinal powder, Su Chu couldn't stop vomiting blood and couldn't endure the torture, so she has already been wrapped in a thin mat and thrown into the mass grave. What? Zhao Qingshu's face changed completely. He didn't even call me madam anymore. Song Zhaifei, you are simply unreasonable. I looked at his slightly unsteady steps and thought, is this all? I should let him see what being truly unreasonable is. In his past life and this one, he was able to protect Shui Jinji flawlessly, without letting a single piece of news leak out. It was only because he was too good at putting on an act. He was the deeply affectionate husband everyone envied, the dignified and reasonable father. How could we have been wary of him? I commanded the old maids and servants I brought back from outside. The backyard of the Marquis Wan's residence has been peaceful for too long. Give it a thorough sifting for me. Then, Zhao Qingshu's confidant, the head steward Zhao Shang, was forced down before me. Steward Zhao, this monthly expenditure of several thousand taels of silver. What exactly was it for? Zhao Shang knelt on the ground, his back straight, and answered neither servilely nor arrogantly. Madam can ask the Marquise. It seems the head steward doesn't take me, the Marquise's wife, seriously, huh? I threw the account book aside, leaned forward slightly, and stared intently into his calm, rippleless eyes. Zhao Shang, do you think that the future Marquis Wei Yuan won't be here? Is that why you are so fearless? Zhao Shang raised his head in disbelief, horror creeping onto his cheeks, the flesh on his face trembling non-stop. He instinctively turned to run, but was kicked to the ground. I looked at him and chuckled. I heard your little grandson just turned 1 month old. How pitiful. You know so much. Do you think Zhao Qingshu will save you? I gave the order. Zhao Shang stole valuables from the Marquise's mansion. Go tie up his entire family, young and old, and send them to the authorities. Show no mercy to those who deserve to be beaten or killed. In my past life, it was Zhao Shang who led his men to throw me from the main courtyard into the woodshed. He covered his nose, cursing and grumbling. What kind of filthy thing is this? Thinking it deserves to live here. Hurry and carry it away. Don't dirty the master's eyes. But he also once knelt before me, weeping with gratitude, and swore an oath to repay my great kindness. He once messed up an errand Zhao Qingshu gave him, and was beaten to within an inch of his life. It was I who pleaded for him and saved his life. It is just that his repayment is something I cannot bear. In the following few days, the entire Marquise's mansion was combed through. Zhao Qingshu's confidants all thought I would hold back for his sake, that I had to be mindful of his reputation and wouldn't exterminate them. But, if I am not living well, why should they get to have a good life? A letter was sent out from Yuye Tower overnight. Zhao Qingshu, who was out of the capital on an assignment, rushed back in a panic. Unfortunately, it was too late. The entire mansion of Marquis Wei Yuan had already completely fallen under my control. Of course, except for Yuye Pavilion. Yuye Pavilion was a place Zhao Qingshu specially chose for Shui Jinji, far from the back courtyard, and instead was only separated from the outer study by a garden. Once the garden gate was closed, Yuye Pavilion became an independent and quiet courtyard, secretly guarded by Zhao Qingshu's trusted guard, Han Chong. Zhao Qingshu came over and threw a huge tantrum, slamming the pearwood table so hard it thundered, and the jade ornaments on the curio cabinet shattered all over the floor. I only asked him, what exactly was the expense item for those few thousand taels of silver? Zhao Qingshu was at a loss for words, flicking his sleeves as he stormed off angrily. The next day, Zhao Shang died in prison. A letter also came from Yer. The master I had asked my elder brother to find had already made contact with him and was now hidden in the shadows. Jingquan sent out the elites he had brought with him to keep an eye out for any unusual movements. He also answered the question I asked him in the letter. Your son has his own soaring ambitions. There is no need to rely on the blessings of our ancestors. That makes things simple. Since Zhao Qingshu dares to smash our mother and son's rice bowl, and even wants our lives, then don't blame me for smashing his pot and destroying the foundation of his Marquis Weiyan's mansion. What belongs to my son certainly cannot be handed over to others. The people we sent, have they reached Yao Yulin's side? Receiving an affirmative answer, I closed my eyes. In another 3 days, pass a verbal message to him. Make sure he returns before the 8th day of the 12th lunar month. Half a month later, Shui Su lowered her head and her gaze. Madam, the Marquise's left arm has been numb and stiff when he practices his saber recently, and his vision is sometimes blurry. I did a quick calculation in my head. A doctor had previously advised that Zhao Qingshu was at risk of a stroke and needed to maintain a light diet, a calm state of mind, and reduce sexual activity. But Zhao Qingshu paid it no mind. For the sake of his health, I controlled his diet, but instead, it invited his complaints. For the past half-month or so, Zhao Qingshu, who had been on a plain diet for 2 years, would not be happy without meat, would not drink without wine, and indulged in revelry and pleasure every night. As for a calm state of mind, He hadn't had one for even a single day. Plus, with me adding extra ingredients to every single meal, even a body made of iron couldn't withstand such depletion. In 3 days, it will be the Laba festival, right? Bits and pieces of my time with Zhao Qingshu flooded my mind. The gentle and valiant husband held the young Yar, complaining with a smile. At such a young age, Yar is just like his maternal uncle, so proper and self-possessed, and loves reading. He doesn't have the uninhibited spirit of a general's family. The next moment, it was him stroking his long beard, patting Zhao Yulin, who was calling him Dad, and saying with satisfaction, "Now this is my Zhao Qingshu's son, the true heir of the Marquis of Weiyuan's residence." So it turns out, he had never been satisfied with Yar. When Zhao Qingshu was young, the Marquis of Weiyuan's residence had already fallen into decline. Before his death, the old Marquis refused to pass away, forcing Zhao Qingshu to restore the Marquis's residence and revive its former glory. Unfortunately, Zhao Qingshu's ambition outstripped his talent, and he had no achievements in the army. He could only place his hopes of revitalizing the Marquis's mansion on his son. Yao Yulin was sent by Zhao Qingshu to Han Yushan Zhuang to learn martial arts when he was 3. And at 14, he began studying military strategy with his good friends from the army. It is just that Yar was never among his choices. At night, have someone lure Han Chong away. It is time to let Yao Yulin go see his birth parents. A fierce argument broke out inside Yu Yilu. Yao Yulin's eyes reddened with anger, truly believing that Shui Jinji had been coerced by Zhao Qingshu for the sake of his future. Zhao Qingshu was naked, pinned against the wall corner by him with a knife. Shu Jinji cried as she stood in front of him, helplessly revealing the truth of the matter. She said that Zhao Qingshu was actually his biological father. She said that they were the real true love, a martial arts heroine and a young heroic marquis, who fell in love at first sight, but due to various worldly constraints, couldn't be together legitimately. She said their concealment was simply to let him grow up into an upright and open-hearted young man, in the pure sunshine of peaceful years. They would surely fight for a bright future for him. Yao Yulin was indeed raised very well by them. Everyone protected him. He was never exposed to conspiracies and schemes, nor had he ever seen the dark and sordid secrets. He was a youth as pure and clear as ice and snow, yet he abruptly fell into a gloomy, lightless mire. The pain was extreme. He refused to believe this fact. After Zhao Qingshu left with an ashen face, Yao Yulin urged Shui Jinji to leave. Shui Jinji had been suppressed for nearly 20 years, and with hope right in front of her, she naturally wouldn't give it up. She, in turn, persuaded Yao Yulin that he would be the master of this Marquis Wan's mansion. Whether it is Yar or me, we will eventually be annihilated into dust, unable to stop the path of wealth and power they have laid out for him. Yao Yulin was stern in the face of Zhao Qingshu's attempts to get close and curry favor, but in the end, he didn't direct harsh words at his mother. He still silently stood by her side. As usual, I sent him clothes and money for expenses. When I sent someone to ask if he was having any difficulties, the usually grateful Yao Yulin lowered his head, polite and distant. "Thank you for your concern, madam. Yulin is doing just fine." He truly is the son that Zhao Qingshu thought most highly of indeed. A young man as clear as ice and bright as the autumn moon. The closer it got to the Laba festival, the more anxious and restless I became. Although I knew Year had taken precautions, I could never calm down. My heart pounded non-stop, and I wished I could immediately put him under my wing to protect him. I was afraid he couldn't root out the traitor in his entourage. I was afraid he couldn't see through the treacherous hearts of people with ulterior motives. I was afraid the wicked people were too wicked, their schemes endless, and that Yar would be exhausted from dealing with it all. I was so scared I couldn't sleep at night. My dreams were filled with mottled bloodstains, with a broken and shattered Yar, lying hopelessly amidst the waterweeds and mire, dying with his eyes wide open. startled awake from a nightmare once again. I buried my face in my palms, tears streaming down through my fingers. I am really so scared. I am afraid I'll still fall into a state worse than death, clinging to life without any dignity like a piece of rotting flesh. Madam, Shuesu asked from outside the gauze curtain. Tomorrow, go withdraw another 10,000 taels of silver from the accounts and distribute kanji and donate clothes in Yar's name. I have to believe in Yar, and I should believe in myself too. Even if we really lose, Zhao Qingshu can forget about getting away scot-free. The remaining dose in the jade gourd, use it all on Zhao Qingshu and Shui Jinji on the Laba festival. Don't waste it. Shu Wei-su bowed and withdrew. I sat upright in the hall, expressionlessly watching the clear sky darken, as if splashed with ink, the entire sky slowly growing dim. The sun was setting in the west, and the cold stars were about to rise. When the servant reported that Zhao Qingshu had already entered the Jade Leaf Pavilion, I couldn't help but sigh. Tonight is really cold. Even colder than people's hearts. It was finally the 8th day of the 12th lunar month, the beginning of all the suffering in my past life. Just past high hour, I took the servants and went to the outer study with great fanfare. Shui Su pressed the young servant guarding the gate. "Where's the marquise?" The young servant knelt on the ground, trembling, stammering and speechless, just kowtowing. A short while later, a servant came to report that guard Han Chong had been found unconscious in the small garden outside the study. Everyone turned pale with fright, worried about the marquise's safety, but didn't dare raise an alarm and could only search for him throughout the marquisate with lanterns. Summonon saw the closed Jade Leaf Pavilion. "My lady, do we need to go inside Jade Leaf Pavilion to look for the marquis?" While I was still pondering, a servant had already encountered Yao Yulen returning late. I instructed Shui Su, "Wait another moment. If we still can't find the marquis, then break down the door of Jade Leaf Pavilion." Shui Su casually glanced outside the door, then turned back and nodded at me. I relaxed. The marquis has been busy with affairs recently. Perhaps he hasn't returned to the residence yet. You all may leave. The winter days are cold. Go rest early. After the servants left, Shuesu and I were taken to a corner of Jade Leaf Pavilion by a master hiding in the shadows. I was able to watch with my own eyes as the chess game I had set up moved towards the ending I desired. I saw Yao Yulin banging on the window with a thunderous sound, and the two, who had just finished their sudden storm, got up in a panic, completely losing their composure. I saw Zhao Qingshu rush out in a flurry, his clothes in disarray. His unsteady footsteps trod on the icy bluestone path, and he fell heavily to the ground with a dull thud. I saw Shui Jinji anxiously asking something inside the room. Yao Yulin gritted his teeth, hoisted the dazed Zhao Qingshu onto his back, and in a few leaps went over the main gate, placing him in the garden of the outer study. After Yao Yulin left, I quietly walked up to him. The fall was a very heavy one. Although Zhao Qingshu was unconscious, his eyes were slanted, his mouth was crooked, and he was drooling from the corner of his mouth. I had Shuesu pry open his mouth and personally poured in another dose of medicine. Snowflakes drifted down from the sky, little by little covering the decay under the tree. It is so cold. I tightened the fur cloak around me. I never looked back. As dawn was breaking, some servant women for rough chores came and banged on the door. They carefully carried the frozen stiff Zhao Qingshu into the bedroom. The imperial physician rushed over. I held down my trembling arm, but my voice still trembled uncontrollably. "Imperial physician, how is the marquise?" The imperial physician held Zhao Qingshu's wrist for a good while, carefully choosing his words. "The marquis overindulged in debauchery, injured his head, and was frozen for a whole night. I am afraid his condition is not good." Everyone in the courtyard held their breath, and a sob caught in my throat. Overindulged in debauchery. Imperial physician Zhang and his young apprentice kept their eyes lowered, merely bowing their heads without a word. Who in the entire capital didn't know that, in the Marquis Wanyun's residence, The couple was deeply in love and lived in harmony. Right now, the Lady Marquise is giving out congee, donating clothes, and observing a vegetarian diet while chanting Buddhist scriptures for the sake of the air. Yet the deeply affectionate Marquis has suffered a stroke and is paralyzed on one side due to overindulgence in debauchery. Isn't this the biggest joke? I stood there dumbfounded, as if unable to accept reality. Imperial physician, Zhang, the Marquis has neither concubines nor bed servants, and he doesn't frequent brothels. How could it be possible? Did you misdiagnose? The young apprentice whispered. Madam, Master's medical skills are superb. He rarely makes a misdiagnosis. Imperial physician Zhang, accustomed to the dark secrets of noble families, remained calm. I will perform acupuncture on the Marquis. It will be easy for him to regain consciousness, but after the stroke, his mobility will be impaired and his speech will be slurred. I hope Madam is aware of this. After a few needles from Imperial physician Zhang, Zhao Qingshu made a rasping sound. He did indeed wake up, but he couldn't accept his current state. His limbs struggled and trembled. His eyes were wide open, and he was visibly panicked. His mouth was twisted, and his face contorted. He desperately wanted to ask me what was going on, but his mouth just opened and closed, drool trickling from the corner, unable to form a complete sentence. I soothed him. After the Imperial physician left, I calmly stated the reality he found hard to accept. Zhao Qingshu, you've had a stroke. The entire capital knew that Marquis Weiyuan Zhao Qingshu had a stroke from excessive debauchery, and that the Marquis's wife, Song Zhifei, was searching all over the capital for the seductress. Besides scoffing, everyone also felt that life is unpredictable, especially a group of noblewomen, who after their mockery, all sighed, saying they had thought he was a devoted man, but who knew he was just another sanctimonious, heartless scoundrel. Therefore, pitying their own situations, they often came to comfort me, and while they were at it, cursed Cao Qingshu's treachery one day. Lady Li took my hand. Her youngest son served in the Jinwu Guard and was responsible for the capital's nighttime patrols and security. The day Lord Marquis had his stroke, he didn't linger outside. He came home on time. You should watch out for the little vixen in the house. At the right moment, I pressed a handkerchief to the corner of my eye. I trusted Lord Marquis so much, yet he was doing things right under my nose. He has deceived me so cruelly. They pitied me even more. But before I could even expose the vixen in the house, a shocking case occurred in the capital. The Crown Prince was attacked. Fortunately, when the incident occurred, Zhao Yi, heir of the Marquis of Weiyuan, noticed something was amiss. He protected the Crown Prince and helped him escape safely, but he himself was stabbed several times and fell into a coma gravely injured. The Crown Prince rushed back to the imperial palace. Travel-worn, he knelt before His Majesty, speechless for a long time. After a long while, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice. "Father Emperor, your son has finally returned." After hearing about the Crown Prince's ordeal, His Majesty was furious. The Crown Prince was the son of the first Empress and was personally raised by His Majesty since childhood. He is the heir apparent chosen by His Majesty. After the Crown Prince detailed the corruption case, His Majesty ordered others to investigate it strictly. He sent the imperial physician to Siyar and had the Crown Prince investigate the assassination case himself. He gave the Crown Prince the power of life and death, and also gave him 4 words: punish severely without mercy. When I returned home, the imperial physician was examining Yer. Yer lay on the bed with his eyes tightly shut, his handsome face as white as snow from blood loss, his breathing faint. Me legs went soft, and I knelt down on the ground. The imperial physician opened his mouth to console. "Madam, you don't have to worry. The young lord's injuries are not in any vital spots. He just needs to recuperate well, and he will be fine." My heart relaxed, and tears fell down. Fingers tugged at my sleeve. I looked up to meet Yer's open eyes. He weakly curved the corners of his mouth. "Mom," he said. "Mom, you don't have to be scared anymore." I stared blankly at his young features and replied with difficulty, "Mom will never be scared again." We had never talked about his father until the day he could get out of bed. His face was terribly pale, yet his eyes were cast down, making his expression unclear. "Mother, should I go and see father?" "No need. Let him be happy for a couple of days first." A bitter smile escaped the corners of Yair's mouth, and he was silent for a moment. "That is fine, too." He turned and got into the carriage the Crown Prince had sent someone to fetch him with. The imperial physician followed closely behind, cautiously taking his pulse. The attendant meticulously held out a hand warmer and placed it in his palm, then helped him put on a large cloak. Yair lifted the curtain. "I'll have to trouble you with matters at home, Mother." The assassination case had wide-reaching implications, and the entire imperial court was scared into silence under His Majesty's thunderous rage. Among them, there was no lack of people fishing in troubled waters, muddying the clues. So, before Yair was fully recovered, he was brought to the Crown Prince's side to help investigate the case. The Crown Prince and his men caught the scoundrels who attempted to bomb the river, and Hanyu Villa was the first to bear the brunt. Hanyu Villa was sealed off, and everyone was arrested. With nowhere to turn for help, Shui Jinji and Yao Yulin came to the backyard asking to see Zhao Qingshu. They still didn't know Zhao Qingshu had a stroke. This was my first time carefully sizing up Shui Jinji. She was indeed very beautiful, like a thorny rose. She probably never thought there would be a day she'd have to bow her head to me. Her delicate and beautiful eyes and brows were stiff, her head held slightly high. "I have a matter, and need to request an audience with the Lord Marquis." I put down my tea, suddenly wanting to see what kind of expression Shui Jinji would have after learning of Zhao Qingshu's current situation. I took them to Zhao Qingshu's room. Two coarse old maids were holding down a grief-stricken and indignant Zhao Qingshu, cleaning his bedding. Shui Jinji's face turned deathly pale. She rushed forward 2 steps, and before she could make a sound, her eyes met with Zhao Qingshu's. Zhao Qingshu's struggling limbs went limp. He shot me an extremely quick glance, his anger on the verge of erupting, but he quickly calmed down. His gaze sharpened slightly. He gazed at Shui Jinji's eyes for a long, long time. Shui Jinji understood his restraint. She took a few steps back, her beautiful head lowered, tears like dewdrops, falling lightly one by one from under her long eyelashes. She sobbed. "Marquise, Yulin's sect has been ravaged. Is there anything you can do?" She also knew that in Zhao Qingshu's current condition, he probably couldn't be of any help at all. Her tears fell more and more. Her voice was suppressed in her throat, sobbing too hard to speak. On the bed, Zhao Qingshu's eyes looked like they were about to split, and he let out rapid, hoarse sounds. I ignored him, my gaze falling on the anxious and uneasy Yao Yulin. On the day the Marquis fell, if he had been treated in time, he wouldn't have become so gravely ill. Shui Jinji looked up in astonishment, and all the color drained from Yao Yulin's face. I just sighed in regret. The Marquis was thrown into a secluded little garden on a night of heavy snow, froze for a whole night, and almost died. And because of that, the treatment for his illness was delayed. The devastated Shui Jinji was being supported by Yao Yulin as she walked out. Zhao Qingshu struggled to his feet, glaring fiercely at me, his expression incredibly foul. I took the hot water Shui Su handed me and mercilessly splashed it on that disgusting face. Zhao Qingshu's steaming face was filled with astonishment, and his struggles suddenly stopped. As soon as Shui Jinji walked out of the backyard, she slapped Yao Yulin. Yao Yulin, with tears in her eyes, turned and ran out of the Marquise's mansion. I calmly let out the gloom in my heart with a sigh, but the stifling feeling within me did not lessen. Judging from today's situation, the feelings between Shui Jinji and Zhao Qingshu are truly genuine. The affection and concern flowing from their eyes and brows could not be faked. Visions of Zhao Qingshu's past tenderness appeared before my eyes, and I couldn't help but laugh until I cried. We have been married for 20 years, and Zhao Qingshu's deep affection was also a pretense for 20 years. Even if he disregards the affection between us as husband and wife, Yer is still his son. He could still, with a heart as hard as iron, take the lives of me and my son. The pent-up frustration filling I said with a cold, grim face. Within 7 days, make Zhao Qingshu able to speak. 3 days later, a constable came to the door, requesting an audience. They caught the remnant of the cold jade manor, Yao Yulin, who was hiding in Marquis Wei Yun's mansion. One of Yao Qian's former political enemies exposed his identity, identified him as Yao Qian's son, and after Yao Qian was convicted and demoted, he lived incognito and became a steward elder at Cold Jade Mountain Manor, having intricate connections with the Crown Prince's assassination case. The constables came to our door, wanting us to hand over Yao Yulin's mother, Yao Qian's mistress. She, just like Yao Yulin, was also implicated because of Yao Qian. Before I could say anything, a limping Zhao Qingshu rushed over, supported by Han Chong. He dragged his body, paralyzed from a stroke, and tried hard to negotiate with the bailiffs. The bailiffs gave him a 3-day deadline. With his face twisted, Zhao Qingshu anxiously yelled at me, sputtering out words, wanting me to rescue Yao Yulin. I had someone hold Han Chong down, and with a flick of my hand, splashed the steaming hot tea all over Zhao Qingshu's face. His face instantly turned red. He was so furious his hand trembled even more violently. I slapped him across his still warm cheek, my tone as cold as overnight ice. Zhao Qingshu, so you do feel heartbroken for your son. Ever since I exposed his relationship with Sui Jinji and her son, Zhao Qingshu simply stopped bothering to hide it. But no matter how he pressured and obstructed, Sui Jinji was still taken away. Shui Su asked me, "My lady, why go to all this trouble?" I knew what she meant, directly making Zhao Qingshu bedridden, and having the constables arrest Shui Jinji and her son would naturally be a once-and-for-all solution. But what I want is more than just that. I also have to consider Yer, although he learned that Zhao Qingshu had another son, and that they even wanted to murder us, mother and son, for the sake of his heir-apparent position. But 17 years of father-son affection isn't something that can be abandoned without a second thought, just because of one moment of despair. Yar is not a cruel child. Only by accumulating enough disappointment, by letting Yar see clearly Zhao Qingshu's cold-blooded heart, only then can he completely break away from Zhao Qingshu. And this is something only a Zhao Qingshu who can get out of bed can do. Zhao Qingshu still has a few confidants, so he quickly found out about the court's movements. Naturally, he also learned that Yair was not seriously harmed and was coordinating with the Crown Prince to thoroughly investigate the assassination case. I don't know how he felt. The current Zhao Qingshu is simply unable to rescue Yao Yulin and his mother on his own. But for the sake of Shui Jinji and also for Yao Yulin, he who has always cared so much about his reputation actually dragged his sick and broken body to find Yair again and again. He self-righteously forced Yair to save his beloved woman and son. After this happened several times, amidst the gossip and mockery of his colleagues, Yair's face finally turned cold. Since Marquis Wan says that Yao Qian's mistress is your woman, and that his son is also your biological son, then please produce the evidence. Zhao Qingshu really has become shameless. He doesn't even care about the old Marquis's last wish anymore. He found the marriage certificate he and Shui Jinji had written by hand back then. They had once solemnly presented the certificate to heaven and earth, bowing in the dim green nuptial chamber to be wed. He found the midwife and female servants from back then, trying his utmost to prove that Yao Yulin was his biological son. And to this end, he went so far as to stage a grand and dramatic blood paternity test outside the prison, ignoring everyone's ridicule and cold stares. He was dead set on rescuing the mother and son. When I saw Yar, snow had fallen on his cloak, and his hands were terribly cold. I sat down beside him, and we watched the snow fluttering down outside the pavilion. With Zhao Qingshu causing such a scene, won't it be hard for you with the crown prince? Yer laughed softly. It won't, His Highness has long known about these dark secrets. The more of a scene he makes with me, the more at ease His Highness will be. After a while I asked again. After the new year, I will divorce Zhao Qingshu. What are your plans? Yair said without hesitation. I will have him remove me from the clan registry. I am going with mother. My eyes grew hot. From then on, Yar, you will only be able to rely on yourself. Yar stood tall and elegant, his figure under the snow as clear and bright as moonlight. Your son has his own soaring ambitions. I have no need to rely on the blessings of our ancestors. Even though Zhao Qingshu made everyone acknowledge his relationship with Shui Jinji and her son, they were still locked up in prison and couldn't get out. Assassinating the crown prince is the crime of regicide, punishable by the extermination of the 9 familial generations. Even if Shui Jinji cleared her ties with Yao Qian, she was still the biological daughter of the master of Cold Jade Manor. And since the master was a suspect in the crown prince's assassination case, Shui Jinji and Yao Yulin were within the 9 familial generations and could not be spared. Shui Jinji was also a ruthless person. To get herself off the hook, she handed a letter to the crown prince. Then, the 7th prince, who had been sitting solemnly at the back of the hall, fell from power. On the day that Shui Jinji and Yao Yulin returned home, Zhao Qingshu and I divorced. Under the witness of the clan elders, Yir's name was removed from the family registry of the Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion. Yao Yulin changed his surname to Zhao and was openly and grandly written into the column for the legitimate son. The official wife, of course, was also changed to Shui Jinji. Shui Jinji held the unsteady Zhao Qingshu tightly, finally raising her head in front of me. Yar and I went to my dowry courtyard. It was a 5-entry courtyard, so of course it couldn't compare to the Marquise's estate. But with only me and Yair, the 2 masters, living there, it was still very spacious. After the assassination case was closed, Yar began to study at home. Having left a family of decorated nobility, he couldn't obtain a court position through hereditary privilege. He politely declined the crown prince's recommendation. After a long talk with the crown prince, he decided to enter officialdom through the imperial examinations. The noble ladies of the capital didn't sever ties with me, often sending invitations for gatherings. While they were talking and laughing, they also patted my sleeve and sighed. We thought the one who hooked Marquis Wei Yuan was a little home-raised vixen, but unexpectedly, she turned out to be a beautiful wild fox from the Jianggu. Her abilities are actually this great. Hearing this, I didn't say much, only offering a faint, indifferent smile. Some ladies who understood also muttered quietly. Even if the 7th prince was guilty, for him to be brought down by a remnant of a suspect like her, how could the Marquis Wei Yuan's manor possibly be in His Majesty's good graces? Not long after, Zhao Qingshu's memorial to the throne requesting Yao Yulin be made the heir apparent was rejected by His Majesty. Zhao Qingshu once came to my door, flushed with anger, to question the whereabouts of the hundreds of thousands of silver taels from the manor's accounts. Shui Su, with a wooden expression, took out the account books for the kanji and clothing donations and threw them right in his face. If it weren't for the mistress's charitable deeds, how could the young master have returned completely unharmed? Marquis, wouldn't you agree? Zhao Qingshu trembled with rage, his limbs stiff as he cursed in exasperation. Song Zhifei, you are a venomous woman. I came out from the courtyard, feeling refreshed as I looked at his current dejected state, and suddenly asked him in a low voice, Zhao Qingshu, take a guess. How did the bluestone path inside Yuye Tower freeze over? Zhao Qingshu's expression changed drastically, and he widened his eyes in disbelief. Since you want the lives of me and my son, I just wonder if you'll be able to bear our return gift. Zhao Qingshu's face turned alternately green and pale, as if he had instantly figured out all the connections. His eyes were filled with horror, and he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. He fell down limply. Zhao Qingshu's stroke had worsened. After he was carried home by the guards, the whites of his eyes were already showing. Even though the imperial physician arrived in time, for the rest of his life, only his eyes would be able to move. Knowing this news, my whole body felt at ease. At the pavilion by the water, I immediately downed 3 big bowls. Yar watched the broken nest on the branch from under the eaves for a while, then went back to his room to read, his expression as normal as ever. After sobering up, I was in a slight daze and instructed Shui Su, pull all our people back. From now on, we have nothing more to do with him, Zhao Qingshu. What needed to be done has been done. The remaining bitter fruit is for their family to swallow on their own. In the blink of an eye, 3 years had passed. After Yair passed the imperial examinations and became an official, from a senior clerk in the Crown Prince's mansion to a remonstrance official in the imperial court, his appearance grew even more handsome and tall, yet his entire demeanor became increasingly cold and stern. It is said that today in court he again won a debate against a crowd of scholars, angering a group of old officials until they were tongue-tied, pale-faced, and short of breath. When Lady Li came to visit, I was sitting under the peach blossom tree, sighing constantly. "What are you worrying about?" "Ashu, you say Yar has offended every last one of the old lords in the court. Would they still marry their own daughters to him?" After hearing that, Lady Li started chuckling non-stop. Her younger son had just married the libationer's young daughter, so of course she didn't have such troubles. After she was done laughing, she comforted me with a few words, then changed the subject. "A song, did you know? That Marquis Wei Yuan's estate is now getting by through pawning their things. Ever since Zhao Qingshu rescued Shui Jinji and her son and divorced me, the Marquis Wei Yuan's residence has become the laughingstock of the entire capital. What is more, Zhao Qingshu was later so angered by me that he vomited blood and has been paralyzed ever since, leaving the Marquis Wei Yuan's residence with only a not-yet-grown Zhao Yulan. Zhao Yulan grew up in the Jianggu, is unfamiliar with the affairs of the imperial court, and with no clan elders to guide him, he cannot uphold the prestige of the Marquis Wei Yuan's residence, and since the assassination case, Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion has been very much out of favor with His Majesty. Zhao Yulan's request to be named the heir apparent has yet to be approved. He still holds no title. And so, Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion gradually fell into decline, remaining only as a shallow topic for idle chatter. Another year passed, and on the very day that Year was grandly getting married, Zhao Yulan left for the borderlands. The girl Yor married was surnamed Lin. She was a bright and well-mannered woman, and extremely likable. She was the second legitimate daughter of the head of the Department of State Affairs' family, and had been doted on since childhood. Although their marriage was personally arranged by the Crown Prince, when Yer went to welcome the bride, he still received a huge eye-roll from his father-in-law. The little old man, huffing and puffing, sent a bunch of his sons and nephews to block the door. Yer said all sorts of nice things, and in the end, rubbing his nose, he composed 20 wedding-welcoming poems in one go before he could marry the girl and bring her home. When he talks to others, he is arrogant and sharp-tongued, practically wishing he could pile snow on the peaks of his brows. But when facing the petite and lovely girl, his expression was gentle, like spring water melting ice, a picture of pure brightness and warmth. Back then, Yer had taken a post at the Ministry of War, and his official duties became even busier. Lin Shi was pregnant, so she often came to see me, and the two of us, mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, would curl up on the couch and chat idly. Sometimes, when she got tired from chatting, she would rest at my place, waiting for Yer to come pick her up when he got off duty. One day, she asked me, "Mother, why does a Yai, a civil official, have to study the art of war with old General Li? He is clearly so tired, always burning the midnight oil reading until very late." I was reading a travelogue, and in an instant, I couldn't see the words on the page clearly. My eyes filled with tears. Yair, so he has known all along that Zhao Qingshu doesn't like him. In his youth, He also studied the art of war diligently, gathering 100 men on my estate to secretly train troops. He also wanted to grow into the kind of child Zhao Qingshu hoped for. Sheer, if one day Yer is sharing rations across the camps and mustering troops on the battlefield, what will you do? I will wait for the day he is made a marquis and granted a title. 3 more years passed, and not long after the new emperor ascended the throne, the D tribe came to invade. Yer donned his armor and mounted his horse, following the Duke of Dingguo, old General Li, to fight on the battlefield. Before he left, he gazed at the 3 of us, grandmother and grandchildren, from afar. Then, with a determined look, rode his horse away. The peach blossoms in the courtyard bloomed time and again, and the heavy snows fell year after year. Yayer's Achi had even started school. Achi was slow-paced and good-tempered, and he made quite a few friends at school. On this day, warblers flew as the grass grew long, and chicks chirped when a little friend came knocking on the door. Achi, Achi, your dad is back, and the black horse he is riding is so magnificent. When Yair returned from the palace, he brought with him an imperial mandate bestowed by His Majesty. His bearing was like that of a pine and bamboo, his face weather-beaten but still handsome, as he stood outside the door smiling at me. That was the first time since becoming an adult that he laughed so hard he lost his composure, he said. Mom, you are now the old madam of the genuine Marquis mansion. Mom, look. He was wrong, his choice was wrong. My tears instantly streamed down. Yes, he was wrong. He, Zhao Qingshu, was wrong from beginning to end. My Yair, he was obviously so good. Our whole family moved to the genuine Marquis mansion, bestowed by His Majesty. Everyone praised Yair in a tone of admiration and wonder, praising his mastery of both literary and martial arts, praising his wisdom of 100 dragons. He lazily relaxed his expression, folded his hands in his sleeves, and handed over military power, going back to being a sharp-tongued court official. He completely relaxed, and in his free time, he loved nothing more than taking his wife and child to travel and enjoy nature. When he didn't go out, he would teach a chai in his study. He rarely harshly criticized, beat, or scolded the child. There were always countless praises and rewards waiting for Achi. Achi loves his father dearly. The sunlight was just right that day. Yair received a calling card. Zhao Yulin, whom he hadn't seen in a long time, came to visit. Yair was silent for a long time, but still met with him. The moment we saw Zhao Yulin, both Yair and I were stunned. After so many years, he now looks so much like Zhao Qingshu. Zhao Yulin was not as cheerful as in his youth, his whole person much more melancholic. He respectfully greeted Yair and me and stated the purpose of his visit. Zhao Qingshu wanted to see Yair. He still wants to see me. It has been 7 years. I never thought we would see the day we'd step into the Huayuan Marquis mansion again. The Huayuan Marquis mansion was long past its former glory. Many courtyards were dilapidated and overgrown with weeds. The mansion itself empty and desolate. Even the servants and maids were much fewer in number. Zhao Qingshu was sprawled on the bed, his formerly tall and large figure shrunk into a ball, listless and dejected, though he looked clean enough. He mumbled with his lips, looking at Yair, tears shimmering in his eyes. Yair, wrong, Dad. Barely maintaining her composure, Shuijinji explained with a blank face. He said he was wrong. I just found it ironic. Zhao Qingshu was indeed wrong, but in his past life, when he was in his glory, he never thought he was wrong. When he caused the death of his legitimate son and tormented his first wife to death, he didn't think he was wrong. When he formed cliques for personal gain and suppressed the Song family, he didn't think he was in the wrong either, because at that time, he was successful and famous. At the peak of his power and influence, he was the new crown prince's favorite, the Marquis Weiyuan everyone tried to curry favor with, and not this pile of rotten flesh before me that can't even move on its own. So, the him now will admit his mistakes and repent, but he isn't genuinely repentant at all. Yair nodded indifferently. Right. Marquis Wei Yuan, you were wrong. His brow was filled with an arrogance built from ice and snow. I am the Marquis Zhan Yuan, personally enfeoffed by His Majesty. I entered officialdom through the imperial examinations and earned my marquisate on the battlefield. I am, of course, the best of men. Yer left resolutely, and the light in Zhao Qingshu's eyes died out. He actually deluded himself into thinking Yer would return to the clan. To hell with his pipe dream. As we were leaving, Zhao Yulin was trying to persuade Shui Jinji to leave the capital and return to the Jiang. Shui Jinji's resentful gaze landed on him. It is clearly all your fault, and now you want to just walk away? You both fought on the border. Her son became a marquis, so why are you just a lowly adjutant? She accused her own son. Her voice choked with sobs and tears streaming down her face. Zhao Yulin, you owe your father his life. You owe him. He placed all his hopes on you. And what did you give him in return? It is because of you. All because you are a good-for-nothing. That is why he came to regret it. I won't leave. I am the Marchioness of the Marquis Wine's Manor. This is what I deserve. Why should I leave? Faced with Zhao Yulin's desperate pleas, she was just unreconciled. It is me who is Qingji's Marchioness. It is me. Zhao Yulin's face was full of fatigue. He gazed deeply at his mother. That woman loved his father far more than she loved him. He slung the long saber over his back and strode away. Mother, then as you wish, I will pay back everything I owe him. Shu Jinji was suddenly stunned, and only then did she realize what she had said. Just as she was about to call out to stop him, she saw Yer and me standing to the side. She couldn't hide her shame, pulled back her outstretched hand, and just watched silently as Zhao Yulin walked out of the Marquis of Wei Yuan's mansion. Later, Zhao Yulin was never able to come back. He did indeed give his life back to Zhao Qingshu. In order to earn the military merits he desired, Zhao Yulin died at the border. After the news of Zhao Yulin's death reached the capital, Shui Jinji's hair turned white overnight. She found a bright and sunny day and got herself and Zhao Qingshu cleaned up and looking presentable. A fire rose with the wind, devastatingly grinding all past love and grudges into dust. In this world, there was no longer a Marquis Wei Yuan's mansion. When the news came, I only paused for a moment. Then, with my expression as usual, continued discussing my little granddaughter's Zhuazhou ceremony with Sheer. Yer came over from the training grounds, leading a qi. The moment he appeared, the little meatball in my arms wriggled down to the ground and rushed towards Yar like a baby duck. The grim-faced Yar swiftly scooped up the little chubster, hoisting him over his head in one go. The entire courtyard was filled with the soft and sweet giggles of young children. Tears welled up in the corners of my eyes. A softness filled my heart.